critical build or status build? This has been debated for a very long time. Some will say that status is king, and some will say that a critical build is better. To be honest, both of the statement is true, but there are a couple of factors that we must consider, and in this video, I will try to share my little knowledge on which is better, a critical build, or a status build. First of all, the build we use in our weapons depends on how high the status chance and critical chance of the weapon. If it has high status chance, then obviously we will be building it for status, and if it has a high critical chance, then we will be doing a critical build. If it has both, then we can consider a hybrid critical status build. We could end the discussion here, and just conclude that building for either critical or status depends on the stats of a weapon. However, not all weapons are usable in specific missions. Some early weapons can help us do several star chart missions, but once we are mid-level, or able to do specific high-level missions, those weapons will just be mastery rank fodder for us. Hell, I bet that some of you did not even bother to use those early weapons in the game, and proceed to get those meta weapons in the game. I also bet that you only have used those early weapons to rank up your mastery, and call them mastery rank fodder. Also, we can't say that a status build is better than a critical build, just by basing it on weapon popularity, because the truth is, most of the meta weapons right now are hybrid, and only a few comes with either pure status, or pure critical. If I will be the one asked, which is better among the two build variant, then I would give the criteria of it depends on what mission you are doing. I might say the status is king in my videos, but I'm just referring to one mission, and that is endurance runs. Honestly, you will use both builds, but only in specific situations. Okay, let's discuss first about status builds. Most of the time, you will use this type of setup in the star chart, facing normal factions like the Grineers, Corpus, and Infestation. Status is better if you are doing high-level missions against these factions since it infinitely scales, and no matter how high the enemy level, you will still deal good damage with a status build. By the way, status isn't a type of damage, it simply tells you how likely a hit is to inflict a status effect, and the status effects the weapon can inflict are based on what elements are on a said weapon. Basically, if you have a mod that adds heat damage to your weapon, it will always deal that heat damage, but the heat proc might only happen every now and then, based on status chance. Status builds are developed to inflict the particular damage type's debuffs against targets to make them easier to wipe out, generally for more difficult content in the star chart, or to facilitate certain innate abilities present in specific warframes or weapons. On the other hand, critical builds multiply raw damage against targets to finish them off quickly through most difficulty levels. However, it may take a while if an enemy has damage reduction, so it's still better to build for status and get rid of the damage reduction first, and then proceed to finish them off. Another reason why status is still king against normal factions in the game is that the condition overload mod exists. Applying multiple status on an enemy will give more bonus damage compared to just using the primed pressure point mod. This is one of the main reasons why status build is great in endurance runs against normal factions in the game. It can help you clear survival, mobile defense, exterminate, and any other types of missions against Grineers, Corpus, Infestations, and even the Orogins in the Void. Although status builds are more capable of doing late game missions in the star chart, pure critical builds, paired with elemental mods can be very good on melee weapons which has force/proc on their stances. Critical damage does boost the slash, leading to more bleed procs, and it can often be used on those weapons that have massive critical values plus /damage. Another exemption is the likes of Struffer, which oddly, with just critical based build, it can murder high-level enemies easily. The amount of damage that this gunblade does to high-level enemies is insane. However, if you're going to use this past level 500 plus, then you better bring some backup weapons, or use Warframe abilities to support this gunblade, since it won't be hitting like a truck especially against high armored units. So it seems that status builds are versatile squad leader, and could let you finish every mission in the game. So when is critical build useful? Boss fights, events, and special cases wherein there's an invincibility mechanic. First of all, almost every boss fights in the star chart are immune to status builds, with a couple of exemptions. For example, you can whack the life out of the sergeant by using a Crone Prime with a hybrid critical and status builds. Also, another example of an exemption is the Zealoid Prelate from the assassination mission on Deimos. A condition overload, hybrid build will do more damage compared to an elemental critical based build, just like what you are seeing on your screen. Condition overload seems to work on this boss, and allow you to do better damage compared to just adding critical and the primed pressure point mod. However, most of the iconic boss fights in the game will task you to build for critical and elements. Two major examples of this are the Orb Mother fights in Orb Vallis, and the Eidolon hunts in the Plains of Eidolon. The basic rule of thumb on these missions is, never bring a status-based weapon on these fights, since Orb Mothers and Eidolons are immune to status effect. Normally, you will need weapons with a very high critical chance and total damage to take down these giants. Every build that you have in your weapon when going against the Prophet Taker will most likely be a combination of critical damage mods, and 2 elemental damage mods that combine the radiation element. In this case, we are looking to maximize the damage of each shots, as Prophet Taker is immune to any status types. The same goes for Eidolons in the Plains. The Terrorist, Cantulist, and Hydralist are weak against radiation damage, but you can't afflict them with any status types. It's best that you build all your weapons for a pure critical chance mod setup, to further boost the radiation damage you deal with the Eidolons. Critical builds are also very good against sentients, and most of the events right now, which will probably lead to the finale of New War, will need critical builds to kill the sentient enemies on these types of missions. Just take for example the Armored Orphex, or the sentient mobs when it spawn. These enemies are immune to any status type, and the best way you can kill them is by building your weapon with critical and elemental to further boost the damage you deal. Sentients are also a pain, because they have these adaptation type mechanic wherein after a couple of hits, they will be immune to that damage type. Critical damage will help somehow in killing these enemies, especially when their level scales to 100. So honestly speaking, you can't say that status is better and vice versa in general, since both of these builds are useful in certain scenarios. The build you will also use in each weapons depends primarily on its stats. Probably, you won't go for a status build if the weapon has only a 10% status chance, or you won't go for a critical build if it has a measly 5% critical chance. It also depends on the weapon you are using, but when we speak about usefulness, you can only name a few weapons which are generally used by the public in missions. For mass murdering factions in Star Chart, even at Steel Path, hybrid weapons are the meta right now. Any weapon that has both decent critical chance and status chance is the most popular right now. But when it comes to fights like Eidolons and Prophet Taker, still, those weapons that wield a high critical chance with decent total damage can be considered candidates for these types of missions. So these are just general knowledge on which build is better. Well, status is not better than critical, and critical is not better than status in the end, since you can use them in different scenarios. One can be very effective in a specific type of mission, while the other excels in a different scenario. So in conclusion, both builds are good. It just depends on the weapon, and the type of mission that you will be using it. I hope that this video has given you a little knowledge not just on the topic, but also on some aspect of the game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. Squad Leader signing off.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.